There is a flag that has confused historians, terrified enemies, and survived 5 centuries of war, invasion, and revolution. And most people have never stopped to ask what it actually means. It is a black double-headed eagle on a red background. 2 heads, 1 body, wings spread wide. No crown, no tools, no olive branch, just 2 heads staring in opposite directions on a field of liquid red. This is the flag of Albania. And the story behind it is one of the most dramatic, most violent, and most misunderstood stories in the entire history of human symbols. Most people see it and move on. Maybe they think it looks strange, maybe they think it looks aggressive, but nobody ever asked the real question. Why 2 heads? Why Albania? Where did this symbol come from? And how did a small, mountainous country in southeastern Europe end up with one of the most ancient and powerful symbols in the history of the world on its national flag? That is exactly what we're going to find out today. And I promise you, the answer is far stranger, far older, and far more surprising than anything you are expecting right now. Let us go back, way back, further than Albania, further than Europe, all the way to the ancient empires that first made this symbol mean something. The double-headed eagle is not Albanian in origin. That is the first thing you need to understand. This symbol did not start in the mountains of the Balkans. It did not come from some Albanian king sitting in a castle deciding he wanted a bird with 2 heads on his banner. The truth is much older than that. The earliest known use of the double-headed eagle goes back over 4,000 years to the Hittite Empire in what is now modern Turkey. The Hittites were one of the great powers of the ancient world. They fought the Egyptians. They built stone cities. They forged iron before almost anyone else, and they used the double-headed eagle as a symbol of power, of divine authority, of the ability to see in all directions at once. Think about what 2 heads actually means on a symbolic level. 1 head looks east, 1 head looks west. Nothing can approach from any direction without being seen. It is the ultimate symbol of vigilance, of total awareness, of a ruler or a nation that cannot be surprised, cannot be caught off guard, cannot be defeated by anything it does not see coming. From the Hittites, the symbol traveled. As empires fell and rose and borrowed from each other the way empires always do, the double-headed eagle moved through cultures like a river cutting through rock. The Byzantines adopted it, the Holy Roman Empire adopted it, the Russian Tsars adopted it. The Habsburgs made it their own. At its peak, the double-headed eagle was one of the most recognized symbols of imperial power in the entire world. So, how did it end up on the flag of Albania, a country that never built a great empire, never conquered vast territories, and spent most of its history being conquered by others? The answer has one name, and that name is Gjergj Kastrioti. But you probably know him by his other name, the name the Ottomans gave him, the name that made entire armies turn around and march the other way, Skanderbeg. To understand Skanderbeg, you need to understand what the Balkans looked like in the early 15th century. The Ottoman Empire was expanding westward at a speed that terrified all of Christian Europe. Kingdom after kingdom was falling. Bulgaria was gone. Serbia was crumbling. The Byzantine Empire, the eastern continuation of Rome itself, was on its last legs. Constantinople would fall in 1453. The Ottomans were not stopping. They were not slowing down. They were a military machine unlike anything Europe had faced in centuries. Albania, at this point, was a collection of small feudal territories ruled by local lords who spent as much time fighting each other as they did worrying about the Ottomans. It was not a unified country. It was barely a concept, and the Ottomans knew this. Gjergj Kastrioti was born around 1405, the son of one of these Albanian lords, Gjon Kastrioti. When Gjergj was still a young boy, His father was forced to send him to the Ottoman court as a captive, a common practice at the time. You sent your sons to the Sultan as a guarantee of loyalty. In exchange, you were left in peace. Mostly. Djerdje grew up in the Ottoman court. He converted to Islam, as was expected of him. He was educated in Ottoman military strategy and administration. He was exceptionally talented, and the Ottomans recognized it quickly. He rose through the ranks. He became a military commander. He was given the name Iskander, the Ottoman version of Alexander, as in Alexander the Great, because his commanders saw something in him that reminded them of history's greatest conqueror. And the title Bey was added, meaning lord or commander. Skanderbeg, Skanderbeg, he fought for the Ottomans for years. He fought well. He won battles. He was trusted. And all of that time, something was burning inside him. In 1443, everything changed. The Ottomans suffered a serious defeat at the Battle of Niš, crushed by a Hungarian-led crusading army. In the chaos and confusion that followed, Scanderbeg saw his moment. He took 400 Albanian horsemen, forged documents bearing the Sultan's seal, and marched back into Albania. He presented the forged documents at the castle of Kruja, which he had grown up near, and the castle commander surrendered the fortress to him without a fight. Skanderbeg had his base, he had his army, and he had spent 20 years learning exactly how the Ottomans fought. He immediately reconverted to Christianity. He proclaimed himself Lord of Albania. And then he did something that nobody, not the Ottomans, not the European powers, not his own Albanian lords, expected. He united the fractured Albanian clans under a single banner and launched a military campaign against the most powerful empire in the world. The symbol he chose for that banner was the double-headed eagle, specifically a black double-headed eagle on a red field, the same symbol his father's family had used, the same symbol that connected back through Byzantine history to the ancient imperial tradition of total vigilance and unbeatable power. For 24 years, from 1443 until his loss in 1468, Skanderbeg fought the Ottomans, not in one battle, not in two, in 25 separate military engagements. Skanderbeg defeated Ottoman forces that outnumbered him sometimes 10-1. He used the mountain terrain of Albania the way a chess master uses the board, controlling passes, retreating to high ground, striking at supply lines, refusing to fight on flat ground where Ottoman cavalry had the advantage. The Ottomans sent army after army. Sultan Murad II came personally and failed. Sultan Mehmed II, the same man who conquered Constantinople and ended the Byzantine Empire, came personally and failed twice. Skanderbeg's fortress at Kruja held. The black eagle on red flew above it through siege after siege. Pope Calixtus III called him the champion of Christ. European powers sent money and supplies, though never quite enough. Skanderbeg became the symbol of resistance, proof that the Ottoman advance could be stopped, that a small force with the right leader and the right ground could hold out against an empire that had swallowed entire kingdoms whole. When Skanderbeg died of fever in 1468 at the age of around 63, the resistance did not survive him. The Albanian lords could not hold together without him. By 1478, the Ottomans had taken Kruja. By 1479, they controlled most of Albania. The double-headed eagle disappeared from the battlefield. But it did not disappear from memory. For the next 4 centuries, Albania was under Ottoman rule. The Albanian people converted to Islam in large numbers. Today, Albania is majority Muslim, which surprises many people who see the eagle and assume a purely Christian identity. But religion and national identity in Albania never followed the simple rules that outsiders expected. Being Albanian was always more complicated than being any one religion. The mountains kept the culture alive. The language kept the identity alive. And the memory of Skanderbeg kept the eagle alive. The eagle lived in folk songs, in stories told by fireside in mountain villages, in the visual tradition of Albanian craftsmanship and decoration. It was never officially a national symbol during Ottoman rule because there was no Albanian nation to have official symbols. But it was always there, underneath everything, waiting. Then came 1912. The Ottoman Empire, which had once terrified all of Europe, was dying. The Balkan Wars had started. Serbia, Greece, Bulgaria, and Montenegro had formed an alliance and were carving up Ottoman territory in Europe. Albania was about to be carved up with it, divided between its neighbors, wiped off the map as a distinct entity before it had ever truly been one. On November 28th, 1912, a group of Albanian leaders gathered in the city of Vlora. They had almost no time. The armies were closing in. They had to act or disappear. Ismail Cemali, an Albanian politician who had worked inside the Ottoman system for decades, stood up and made a declaration. Albania was independent. He raised a flag. It was a red flag with a black double-headed eagle in the center, Skanderbeg's eagle, the same symbol that had flown over Kruzia 4.5 centuries earlier. In a moment of desperate improvisation, facing partition and erasure, the Albanians reached back through 450 years of foreign rule and pulled out the one symbol that said, unmistakably, that they had existed before the Ottomans and intended to exist after them. It worked. Barely, but it worked. The great powers of Europe, Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, Italy, recognized Albanian independence in 1913. The borders they drew were not what Albanians wanted. Large Albanian populated territories were given to Serbia and Greece, but Albania existed. It was on the map, and the eagle was on its flag. The century that followed was not kind to Albania. The country went through occupation in World War I, a kingdom under a former Ottoman official named Ahmet Zogu, who declared himself King Zog I in 1928, Italian invasion in 1939, German occupation in World War II, and then one of the most brutal communist dictatorships in the entire world under Enver Hoxha, who ruled from 1944 until his loss in 1985. Hoxha's Albania was extraordinary in its isolation. He broke with Yugoslavia, he broke with the Soviet Union, he broke with China. By the 1970s, Albania was the most isolated country in Europe, possibly in the world. Hoxha declared Albania the world's first atheist state, banned religion entirely, and imprisoned or executed thousands of people. He built 700,000 concrete bunkers across the country, one for every 4 Albanians, convinced that invasion was always imminent. Through all of it, the double-headed eagle stayed on the flag. Communist governments typically replaced old national symbols with revolutionary imagery, red stars, hammers, and sickles. The language of international socialism. Hoxha did add a red star above the eagles' heads during the communist period, but the eagle itself remained. Even a dictator who banned God and cut his country off from the entire world did not remove the black eagle from Albania's flag. When communism collapsed and Albania transitioned, violently and chaotically, to democracy in the early 1990s, one of the first things the new government did was remove the communist star from the flag. The eagle remained, exactly as it had been in 1912, exactly as it had been in 1443. That is what the Albanian flag actually is. Not just a design choice, not just an aesthetic preference. It is 5 centuries of continuity compressed into a single image. It is the claim that Albania existed before the Ottomans, survived communism, survived every attempt to erase it, and is still here. The 2 heads looking in opposite directions represent something that every Albanian historian and every Albanian grandmother understands instinctively, even if they never say it in these exact words. You have to watch both ways, east and west, past and future, friend and enemy. Because the mountains of Albania sit at the exact crossroads where empires have always collided, and the only way to survive in that position is to never, ever stop watching. There is one more thing worth knowing. Albanians are split across multiple countries today. There are Albanians in Albania, in Kosovo, in North Macedonia, in Montenegro, in Serbia, in Greece. The question of a greater Albanian identity, what some call ethnic Albania or natural Albania, is still politically charged, still unresolved, still the subject of careful diplomatic language, and occasionally something less careful than that. But across all of those communities, in all of those countries, the double-headed eagle appears on walls, on car stickers, on jewelry, tattooed on arms, spray-painted on buildings. It functions not just as a national symbol, but as an ethnic marker, a way of saying I am Albanian regardless of which country's passport I carry. A symbol that started 4,000 years ago with the Hittites, traveled through Byzantium and into the Balkans, was lifted by a military genius who learned to fight from his enemies, then survived 4 centuries of foreign rule, a nationalist revolution, a communist dictatorship, and the collapse of an empire, and ended up on the arm of a 20-year-old in Pristina who has never read a history book in his life, but knows exactly what that eagle means. That is what flags actually are. They are not just rectangles of colored fabric. They are compressed history. They are the things a people decided were worth remembering when they had to choose just one image to carry forward into the future. And now you know what Albania chose. And why? If you found this as fascinating as I did, there is a lot more where that came from. Every flag in the world has a story like this. Some of them are even stranger. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment telling me which flag or border you want decoded next. I read every single one,